Hey guys, how's it going? Exactly 1 year ago today, I uploaded the first video on this channel to share with you guys what I was able to accomplish with just a simple sack of flour. After that, a lot of things have happened on this channel, such as being the first one to review the Animator Survival Kit animated DVD box set, the first one to review the first ever animation book, Animated Cartoons by E.G. Lutz, the first one to attempt to review the mythical animation book, Walt Disney's The Art of Animation, and getting 1,000 subscribers in the first year. I thank all of you for being with me through it all. 6 months ago, I reviewed the new Animation Legacy book series by Tony Wright, who was one of the many apprentices of Richard Williams. He worked on Richard Williams' Christmas Carol special. He worked on the opening credits animation for The Pink Panther Strikes Again. And he's written a plethora of animation books. Remember when I said I'd review them once I got hold of all of them? Well, that time has finally come. So sit back and let's go over all the Tony Wright books. First, we'll start with the first one Tony's written, the one that led me to support DRAWtastic on the Indiegogo page, the Animator's Workbook. It was released back in 1978, which means the book was celebrating its 45th anniversary when I got it from the Indiegogo page last year. If you happen to own the physical version of the book, there's a little flipbook animation that you can do from the top right-hand corner of the odd number pages. The book has a total of 15 chapters, 9 of which come with assignments for you to do, and 3 of which talk about the technical aspects of animation, including the process of animation, what stuff you'll need to do animation back in the 70s, as well as information about dope sheets and field guides. Other chapters include lessons on in-betweening, head turns, walks, runs, animal action, dialogue, exaggerated action, adding a realistic touch to animation, animated effects such as wind, water, and fire. There's even a lesson on backgrounds. Also, a fun little fact about this book, it predates The Illusion of Life by 3 years, and the Animator Survival Kit by 24 years. If the student was able to write a good animation book before their teachers, that says a lot about the quality of the student and their work. Next, we have the sequel that some didn't think would ever happen. The Animator's Notebook. According to its introduction, as well as the back of the book, this is said to be like the notes of a master animator, written clearly and understandably for those who read it to become master animators themselves. And the master animator in question is, you guessed it, Tony Wright. The copy I own is the second edition from 2013, released after the original publication in 2012. Much like the Animator's Workbook, each chapter comes with an assignment for you to do, except for Chapter 1. And with there being 12 chapters in this book, that leaves a total of 11 assignments for you to do. The first chapter goes over the general process of approaching an animated scene. Remember the 12 principles of animation? Now we have the 12 steps of animation, because that's how many steps the general process takes for hand-drawn animation. Other chapters talk about various kinds of walks and runs, anticipation and arcs, weight, overlapping action, fluidity and flexibility, and dialogue. In fact, Tony even says in the chapter about dialogue that whole book could be written about animating dialogue. Tony, if you're watching this, you could make one of your Animation Legacy books that entire book of animating dialogue. While the book goes over what you'd expect to find in most animation books, it has a few pieces of information not found anywhere else. For example, Art Babbitt taught Tony Wright that if you're drawing a piece of clothing that's thick, be sure to have the edges of that piece rounded to reflect the thickness of that piece. Or, if it's thin, be sure to have the edges sharp. It also brings up that when you walk up a hill, you tend to lean forward, and when you walk down a hill, you tend to lean backward. Something that the Animator Survival Kit hasn't brought up. Remember when I reviewed those 2 books to celebrate the release of Inside Out 2? One of them was called the Animator Sketchbook. But this one, by Tony Wright, is a real Animator sketchbook. The threequel in a trilogy of Animators books. The one from Pixar should have been called the Animated Filmmaker's Sketchbook. However, Pixar's version came out 10 months earlier, so who knows what happened there. Anyway, out of all the books, this one has the most exercises in it. 66 total exercises to be exact. And this is the only other animation book that I know of, other than Quick Sketching with Ron Husband and Pixar's Animator Sketchbook, that you're encouraged to draw in. If you happen to have this book digitally, you could probably do the assignments in any drawing app you have. Each exercise begins with a sentence or paragraph explaining what you need to do for that exercise, with the page afterward showing an example of what's expected, with some blank pages afterward to do the assignment. Did I mention that you're encouraged to draw outside of the blank pages also? Like the exercise pages, for example? Yeah, if you can find any opportunity to do a gesture drawing, that's what the extra space is for. The appendix of the book contains the model sheet of Tony White's character Arnie, who was created during the making of the Animator's Workbook, and is arguably the star of Tony's film Endangered Species. It also contains space for you to do your own character turnaround and expression sheet. It also has some notes on film language, such as the various shots used in film. And if you happen to get this book, keep this in mind. You can use this alongside your portfolio, so you can get a job in the animation industry. And speaking of getting a job in the animation industry, now that we got the Animator's book series taken care of, let's talk about the ebooks Tony written. With the first one, we'll be starting off with his Jumping Through Hoops, the Animation Job Coach, which was the first book Tony's ever published by himself. As the title suggests, this book gives you pointers on how you can get a job in the animation industry. It's kind of a predecessor to the first book in the Animation Legacy series, the Animation Student Guidebook. But what sets this book apart from that is that it contains a story from a former student, Brianna Lindsay, who graduated animation school 9 months prior to this book's release, meaning she's been in the industry for 12 years now, since the book released on September 6, 2013. It also contains a lot of useful links for you to visit with the tap of a finger. Another ebook Tony wrote is called Motion Comics, which was also released in 2013. It goes over how you can make your own motion comics. Granted, you'll need a copy of Adobe Acrobat Pro to put the comic together, since it's the only option available to create interactive PDFs with video. It also goes over basic rigging in Toon Boom Harmony, which is pretty much the same as basic rigging in Toon Squid. At the end of the book, it tells you what equipment you'd need to do hand-drawn animation. It tells about the 2D Academy, and it shows Tony's 50-second short, Revenge of the Fly. The last animation-related ebook Tony White written is called Drawn Together. It's a compilation of 222 artists who donated their work to show their support for hand-drawn animation. Each page credits the artist who made it, how you can contact them if you wish to do so, what their work is about, and what their thoughts on hand-drawn animation are. Alright, now let's get into the big textbook size animation books by Tony White. We'll start with Animation from Pencils to Pixels, the first of Tony White's books that I read. I got it alongside How to Make Animated Films, also by Tony White, in a bundle full of animation books on Humble Bundle. This book was written alongside the making of Tony White's Endangered Species, a short film that goes through the history of animation, recreating some of animation's defining moments. The movie was made so that this book can be written, and both were created to bridge the gap between traditionalist animators, who reject modern technology, and modernist animators, who believe traditional technology is boring and labor-intensive. This book has 16 chapters in it, but it doesn't include any assignments in it. Although in the introduction, it says that this book has everything that an animated filmmaker would need to know about animated filmmaking. Speaking of introduction, the foreword of this book was written by Roy E. Disney, the nephew of Walt Disney, who was the head of Disney during the Disney Renaissance, and was a year younger than Mickey Mouse. The chapters of this book are full of eye-opening information, and one of the pieces of information that ticked me off in this book is that in some contracts, when you create an idea while working for a company, even if the idea has nothing to do with the project the company is having you work on, that company owns whatever ideas you make while you work there. What company would heartlessly take ownership of their employees' ideas, especially if they desire to work on them after their work is done? This basically gives truth to my theory on Wish's plot representing the animation industry. The best way I can sum up this book is that it's a thoroughly detailed presentation of what the animator should know, from things like financing your projects and finding ideas, to staging and how to do animation in various ways, whether it be traditional, paperless, 2D rigged, or 3D rigged. And then it shows how the things that are talked about here were applied to endangered species, all while sharing some tips and tricks behind the scenes. In a nutshell, it's part history book, part art of book, part behind the scenes book, all with the knowledge of a master animator. Next up is How to Make Animated Films, a book that teaches more on the how-tos of animated filmmaking than the previous one. This book is what propelled me to starting my channel, specifically assignment number 2, where I animated a flour sack jumping on a trampoline. It was the animation that gave me the confidence to start an animation channel. There are 32 chapters in this book, all presented as masterclasses, with the first 10 teaching basic animation techniques, which are very important to know if you want to make your own animated cartoons, and the last 22 taking you step by step on making your own animated film, hence the title of the book. Also, this book gives several shout-outs to the Animator Survival Kit by Richard Williams, especially in Chapter 4. Each chapter has an assignment for you to do in the end, just like the Animator's Workbook and the Animator's Notebook. But unlike those two, the first chapter of this book does have an assignment for you to do. When you get to the filmmaking part of this book, you'll find some parts of the previous book in here, including the photo examples used to show staging. In this part of the book, you're encouraged to do an animated film that's 30 seconds to 2 minutes long, since it's more manageable and realistic, especially for the beginning filmmaker. After you read all 32 chapters, the rest of the book gives you more information on the technical aspects of hand-drawn animation, some resources, a glossary of animation terms used in the book, and an index to help you find certain keywords in the pages. And at last, we have the newest of Tony White's animation books, not counting the Animation Legacy series. Animation Masterclasses, From Pencils to Pixels. The sad thing about this book is that it's going to be Tony's last big animation book, so he put in as much information in it as he possibly could. In all honesty, I kind of cried a little on the inside while reading that part. The goal of this book is to be the definitive reference guide on how to do animation and how to make animated films. It also contains a link to a dedicated website that showcases animated examples in the book. The book itself is based on Tony White's 48-week 2D Academy Masterclass, which is how this book sets itself apart from Animation from Pencils to Pixels and How to Make Animated Films. The book has 48 chapters, again presented as masterclasses, and is divided into 4 sections, containing 12 chapters each. So with 52 weeks in a year, that'd mean 1 week breaks between sections, in case you plan on going through the book like the actual masterclasses. Each chapter begins with a warm-up gesture drawing, then it goes into the lesson for that chapter. Then, much like the Animator's Workbook, Notebook, and How to Make Animated Films, there's a suggested assignment for you to do at the end to help improve your skills. However, there's no assignment for the first chapter, just like in the Workbook and Notebook. However, later chapters just have you do the lesson you're doing as the assignment, especially while you're making your film. Anyway, the first section teaches hand-drawn animation fundamentals, especially walk animations, but it also gets you up to speed on Tony's experience in the industry. Section 2 mostly focuses on 2D rigged animation in Moho, though it does have 2 chapters near the end that get you prepared for pre-production, which is what Section 3 is focused on. While you're encouraged to do the exercises with the downloadable rigs from the website, you can apply the lessons in these exercises to any animation you choose. Like I said, Section 3 primarily focuses on pre-production, specifically storytelling, concept art, character design, storyboarding, audio recording, creating the animatic, basic character rigging if you were using Moho for your project, layout, and the final post test before production begins. Section 4 talks about the production phase of animation, which includes creating your key poses, breakdowns, in-betweens, cleanups. It even talks about the 12 principles of animation, as well as background art, inking, and coloring your animation. There's also a small 5th section of the book that has words of encouragement and talks about what Tony hopes to achieve in the years to come. Just like in How to Make Animated Films, you're encouraged to do a 30-second short film for this masterclass, which is the length of an animated commercial. Also, while the book doesn't endorse any software, in addition to using Moho, the book also uses Rough Animator and references Krita and Digicel Flipbook. Also, in later chapters of the book, especially in Section 3, it references the movie Wolfwalkers by Cartoon Saloon, who originally made the show Skunk Fu, which aired on Cartoon Network while shows like Chowder and Flapjack were in their prime. While I'm talking about Wolfwalkers, I'd like to mention that in one of the scenes of the movie, they used Blender, the free 3D animation software, to assist the animation for the movie. If Blender isn't an industry standard software, then what do you call a software that was used by the industry? And while I'm on the subject of free software being used in the industry, the movie Batman Ninja used OpenToons, the first real animation program that I ever used, in one of the scenes. Anyway, Wolfwalkers is one of Tony's favorite animated movies, which is saying a lot coming from a master animator, and the fact that the movie came out in 2020. If you haven't seen it yet, Tony highly recommends it. Also, one of the biggest discoveries I made while reading the book is that Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnson, two of Disney's 9 old men and authors of The Illusion of Life, have a website dedicated to teaching young animators stuff about animation. If you want to visit the website, I'll have a link to the website in the comments. In a nutshell, you could say that this book is an enhanced version of How to Make Animated Films, with some Animator Sketchbook thrown in there, with the amount of details found in animation from pencils to pixels. But having every single animation book written by Tony Wright will be beneficial to your education in animation. Before we wrap things up, I'd like to do a quick review on Tony Wright's DRAWtastic app. If you're wanting to improve yourself as an animator, but have very little money to afford going to college for animation, and still want to be taught by one of the best animation teachers, then DRAWtastic is for you. Right now, there's a masterclass on creating your own short social media animations, a masterclass that goes over the history of animation, a masterclass on drawing for animation, a masterclass on how to write with pictures, so to speak, and a masterclass that the first section of Animation Masterclasses from Pencils to Pixels is based on. I'd like to say something about the Short Shorts masterclass, as one of the lessons opened my eyes to something. Some jobs require experience, and the only way to get experience is to get a job, and this is especially true for the animation industry. I wish I could create an animation studio that had positions that didn't require experience, but people in those positions would work on smaller projects, while the ones with experience would work on the bigger projects. And this studio wouldn't just have one place of operation. It'd have multiple places in different parts of the world, so no one would have to go too far away from their families to achieve their animation dreams, while also gaining industry experience from my multiple animation studios. I bet some of you are wondering what makes these books as good, if not better than, the Animator Survival Kit, Character Animation Crash Course, or even The Illusion of Life. For me, it's the amount of detail and assignments that these books offer. The Animator Survival Kit and The Illusion of Life had no assignments. Character Animation Crash Course only had 3 assignments, but only 2 of them were animation related. The other one was storyboard related. If I can say anything about an animation book being better than the top 3 animation books of all time, then you know that they're worth having. One of the things Tony's ever wanted, besides the return of hand-drawn animation in the mainstream in the industry, is to create his own feature-length film. And I believe that if more of us bought his books, his masterclasses on DRAWtastic, and spread the word about his amazing animation books, we might be able to help him attain that dream. Well, I hope you all enjoyed my 1-year anniversary special. And Tony, thank you for writing all these wonderful animation books. And thank you for everything you do to keep hand-drawn animation alive, no matter what the industry thinks about it. Oh, and guess what? After a year of making videos, finding what works best for my videos, and reviewing so many animation books, some of you asked if I'll ever revisit one of my reviews. Well, the fact is, I've been thinking about it for a long time now. I'm not going to say what it is that I'm revisiting, but I've been working as hard as I could to make it as great as it can be. Just check back on Friday, and you'll see what I've been working on.